Well, I forgot to start recording. So that's fun. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the CleverDingbat Book Club for Ready Player One. This is session 2. In session 2, we will be covering chapters 5 through 9. We're gonna get some more information about the Oasis. We're gonna get some more information about how Wade goes to school inside the Oasis. We're gonna get some details about some more characters, as well as Wade's first taste of a clue and success in the competition. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to chapter 5. So chapter 5, we pick up with Wade. He's going into into his favorite class, which is Advanced Oasis Studies. He clearly knows more than the teacher does already before this class. This class is kind of an elective for him, just in my opinion, because the kid is going in already like a very well-versed Halliday scholar, and in all honesty, knows more than the teacher does about the subject. He probably knows more than the teacher does about the Oasis itself, more about Halliday and Ogden Morrow than pretty much anybody that's sitting in his class. Being a gunter, he's gonna have access to that information via Anorak's Almanac, much the same as anybody does that wants to go out and get it on the internet. This class for him is just kind of boring, for the most part. He's taking it more to just absorb himself more and more into Halliday's life, Halliday's studies, everything surrounding the contest. Parzival has become obsessed with this over the past 5 years, and this class is just a way for him to stay immersed in the material, in the contest, in the pursuits of what he is going after, right? In this chapter, we see Wade explore how the Oasis started, how Halliday began making games, how Halliday originally became a game designer. We see that he meets his best friend, Ogden Morrow, who in high school, these guys played a lot of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and other pen and paper RPGs. This was the early forming of their love of games. What made them, want to go on and make video games. Halliday makes his first video game and brings in Ogden Morrow to help him. They make their own company after a while. They originally take the game and they basically put it inside the Ziploc bags with a Xerox printout of instructions for how to install it. They put the games on 5 1/4-inch floppies, which were the old true floppy disks. If any of you guys are old enough to have seen one, it is quite floppy. It's where the term floppy disks actually come from, because it would flop. The games, that Halliday and Morrow had created, the game that they created, it was so good they couldn't keep them on the shelves. They'd essentially, tasked their resources that they had available to them were maxed out. So they had to create their own business. They sold them in their local computer store, and continued to make games. It got so bad for them, the games that they would make became so popular that they had to essentially, it started to impact their school while they were in high school. So I forget in the text if it says they finished high school or not. I imagine that they didn't. Or at the very least, they didn't go off to college. They immediately after high school just decided they were going to focus 100% on their business and created Gregarious Games. And they continued to put out games. The company eventually got so popular that it started trading publicly. And the day it traded publicly, they got very rich. Very, very, very rich. I think it said in the text, by the time they were 30, they were multimillionaires. And then the company just kind of went dark. They didn't release any new products. They didn't release any new games. It said they were working on something that was going to be huge and was going to change everything. So years and years went by without them releasing a title, a piece of hardware, nothing. And then one day they released the Oasis hardware. They released the Oasis, the Oasis visor and haptic gloves, and immediately it became something that everyone had to have. Alongside it, though, released the only product that they would ever release after aside from the hardware, which was the Oasis. The ontologically anthropocentric sensory immersive simulation. It's much easier to say Oasis. Yes, Jameson, thank you. So much easier to say Oasis. That is so hard to say. Oh my God. But these guys, like Ogden Morrow and James Halliday, they're kind of based on a lot of different guys, right? There is Halliday specifically is based on Richard Garriott, who is known. He's a game designer. He worked on Ultima, if you guys remember Ultima Online. It was like kind of the precursor for World of Warcraft. If you go back and watch any of the the old guard Blizzard documentaries with the guys who created World of Warcraft, in the days while they were creating WoW, everybody at the company was playing Ultima Online. They were like, well, why can't we make one of those? You know? So, it's Richard Garriott was the one who, was the main designer behind Ultima. And Richard Garriott is one of the guys who inspired the character of James Halliday. Specifically because Richard Garriott was notorious for playing Dungeons and Dragons, taking Dungeons and Dragons role playing to the next level. He would show up in costume, play his character with voices and all of that. So if you do any sort of Richard Garriott research, you'll find that out. But you could also make parallels with Ogden Morrow and James Halliday to that of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak and Apple, and countless other duos like John Romero and John Carmack. Carmack obviously has gone on to literally work on VR with Oculus. So a lot of these big name guys. Another great book, if you have not read it, is Masters of Doom. It's also narrated by Will Wheaton. It's wonderful. It talks about that entire time period, and one of the very first in my opinion, probably the grandfather of esports events, which was the Quake tournament where Carmack gave away his Lamborghini, or was it it was a Lamborghini. In this class, Wade's learning all this. He's not really learning this information. He's just rehearing this information because he already knows all this stuff. And we're basically getting a giant info dump of all of the history of Halliday and Ogden, how they started their company. After they released the Oasis, before they released the Oasis, they changed the company's name True Gregarious simulation systems. And the Oasis was the only product that the GSS would ever release. The best part about it was their marketing campaign. One of the marketing campaigns for it said, it's the greatest video game ever created, and it only costs $0.25. Because the game, in order to play in the Oasis, you had to create an account, and that account cost you $0.25, which was 25 cents. Minus the cost of the Oasis, console, headset, and haptic gloves. But, hardware, that's where that's where they were making their money, was off the hardware. And then also off of the internal game transactions, because that's how the Oasis made its money, is by teleportation fees. If you want to go from, let's say you want to go from Planet Ludus, which is where Parzival is going to school at, to Planet Gygax, which is the Dungeons and Dragons planet. The reason being is because of Gary Gygax. You had to pay. You had to travel from point A to point B, right? So traversing that is you basically get teleported from one planet to the other, and it charges you a fee. But we learn all of this stuff. We learn about how it gets created, how everything just starts. This is just how, and it also goes into Halliday's character, and it talks about Halliday a little bit, saying that Halliday is socially awkward. He had been apparently diagnosed with Asperger's, and they didn't say that. In the text, it says that he has a mild form of autism, but he was never diagnosed with it. So Halliday is very eccentric, and very, very intelligent. And Ogden Morrow, his best friend, is, he's the guy who likes to get out in front of people. Halliday likes to, stay behind. He's like in the Wizard of Oz. Like, he wants to stay behind the curtain. He just wants to do what he's good at and be there. And he doesn't want to be bothered by anybody, except the people that he wants around him. He's a little bit more introverted, as where Ogden Morrow is more extroverted. So they complement each other very well. They are a very good team, and they bring about one of the pieces of technology that changes their world forever. And that is essentially that's all chapter 5 is. And we'll move on to chapter 6. So in chapter 6, the bell has rung, and Wade has moved on to his next class, which is Latin. At the beginning of the chapter, Wade says that, other students always try to take something that they could use, whether it be Spanish or French or some other language. But Wade has chosen to take Latin. And the reason why he has chosen to take Latin is because he knows that Halliday has used Latin in his D&D campaigns. Halliday has used Latin in a lot of his games for various different reasons, for naming things all the way down to, like incantations, spells, that sort of thing. It also will help in his study of Anorak's Almanac, which is Halliday's Bible. It's the Bible for the contest. It's literally the digital guide to everything in Halliday's life, and essentially a strategy guide for, playing the game of finding Halliday's Easter egg. So he feels that Latin's going to help him do that. And later on, we'll find out that it actually does help him. So he's getting really bored in this class because they're just conjugating verbs that he's already memorized a number of different times. And So Wade lets us in on a little secret that he's discovered. He's discovered a bug in the library system of the Oasis, because normally when you're sitting in class, the software will not, if you were in school and you were a school student and you were going to school, it will only let you pull up information pertinent to the class you are in at the time that you are taking that class. So he should only be able to access things with Latin and what is currently in the lesson plan for the teacher. However, Wade's discovered a bug, and he has abused this bug in every class he possibly can, and it's through the library system. And what does he do? He pulls up Anorak's Almanac, because he knows all this stuff the teacher's already saying currently, and it's not going to really hurt him. So rather than just be bored in class, he's going to make good use of the time, and he's going to study Anorak's Almanac. He lets us know about something that was discovered going through Anorak's Almanac years ago. And it's that Halliday had, in the Almanac, had marked letters in the Almanac with a little notch. And this let them know that, like, hey, this letter, like, it's part of a code that Halliday's trying to tell us. And the code that Halliday is trying to tell them is a secret for the Copper Key. It comes to be known as the Limerick. So everybody knows the first thing, which is 3 hidden keys open 3 secret gates, wherein the errant will be tested for worthy traits, and those with the skill to survive these straits will reach the end, where the prize awaits. And then in the Almanac, he has marked letters, and those letters, once they have deciphered, come out to be: the Copper Key awaits explorers in a tomb with horrors. But you have much to learn if you hope to earn a place among the high scorers. So they refer to this as the Limerick. Now, Wade goes through and he's been trying to decipher this thing for a while. And the first line, which is the Copper Key awaits explorers, says this is pretty straightforward, which it is. And in a tomb filled with horrors, also, he feels like he knows this pretty well, because it's an old Dungeons and Dragons module. It's the Tomb of Horrors. So those things Wade has pretty well down packed and figured out. But then the rest of it is really difficult for him, because he's like, but you have much to learn if you hope to earn a place among the high scorers. And he is confused about, like, well, no shit. We've all got a lot to learn. So why, like, how do you decipher that? And well, he's sitting in Latin class. And the thing, while he is looking over the Limerick, that, turns the light bulb on for him, is his teacher starts to go over a Latin word that means essentially to learn. It's where we get the English root of discern. And then Wade's like, I got it. To learn. Who has a lot to learn? Students. Students have a lot to learn. And then this brings to mind the planet's name, which is Ludus. Ludus is the Latin term for school. And he feels this is too good not to be true, right? So he thinks about it more, and he pulls up a dictionary so he can go through and look at these definitions again and make sure. He then also finds out that Ludus in Latin can also mean sport or game. This is it. Like, Wade knows now. He's like, the Tomb of Horrors has to be on Ludus, because earlier in this chapter, he talks about like nobody's been able to find the Tomb of Horrors. It's not on planet Gygax, like where the majority of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons modules exist. So if it's not on planet Gygax, where is it? Well, he goes to look, and he's thinking it's got to be it. After finding out this information in Latin class and what he was already, thinking about, it's got to be here on Ludus. It's the one place no one would look. And then, but why would he put it on Ludus? Because he wants someone. He wants a young person to find it. He wants someone who is a kid that has obsessed over Halliday lore and become obsessed with the contest to find it. This is the Willy Wonka. This is where the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory analogies come in. He wants someone young enough to inherit this that has not already been, corrupted and jaded by years of work and, become a corrupt member of society and only cares about the money. He wants someone that, now granted, I will say that Wade is particularly driven by money because he doesn't have any. He's poor. So Halliday wants to give this off to the young. He wants to give, by putting it here on Ludus, he wants someone who is of school age to find the key and start. That's his desire by it being here. So Wade thinks the Tomb of Horrors is here on Ludus. So what he does is he starts trying to research as much as he can. He can't pull up the maps, so he has to wait for class to end. And this is killing him. He has 17 minutes left in class, and he cannot access the maps because of the very bug, or not because of the very bug, because of the very software lock that he was talking about. He found a bug to in the library system, but this won't let him around that. So he has to literally wait until he can find, once class ends, so he can go about his business and trying to find this. So he goes out and he finds a piece of software on GunTorrent where he can cross-reference what the tomb looks like with the features, with the planet features of Ludus, and he finds it. It's about 400 and some odd kilometers away. Wade doesn't have the money to teleport there, but what he does have is he's found a way that the school can pay for it. They can pay for it. They can pay for his teleportation because the schools have sports teams. This is like college esports inside the Oasis, except high school esports inside the Oasis. So he finds out that, like, hey, I can teleport to a school that we are playing, and I will be closer. So he finds out he can get within about 5 kilometers. He can get within about an hour's run of the tomb. And all he's got to do is he's got to go claim a voucher to travel to where their football team is playing tonight. And so he goes and gets his voucher and he travels there. He gets teleported to he gets teleported from his school to whoever they're playing in the football game that night, and it's against OPS 0517. That's who they're playing, and he's an hour's run. But he forgets, if you remember in our last session, Wade was supposed to meet up with H to have, a marathon of one of the shows they were wanting to watch that night, to do more Halliday research. And as Parzival, gets to where he's going, after he gets his armor on, his sword on, his shield on, and he begins running, H calls him, and he doesn't know. He's like, I can't pick. If I pick up with the voice, H is going to be suspicious. I can't pick up on video because he'll know where I'm at. So what do? He just lets it go to his vid mail. And instead, Wade just sends him a text telling him, hey, I have a lot of homework I've got to catch up on tonight, so I can't hang out tonight like I wanted to. And then Wade is off to find the Tomb of Horrors. Now we're in chapter 8. Wade knows the way. He knows his way around the tomb after he gets there. He gets there. He's been studying the Dungeons and Dragons module. He knows where all the traps are. He knows how to evade the monsters. And he knows where all the loot is, because he found a copy of the Dungeons and Dragons module. He found a copy of the Dungeons and Dragons module buried in an old archive online. So he finds this, and everything is lining up. So hopefully, as long as the module and what Halliday has coded here in the Tomb of Horrors lines up, he will have zero problems getting through and getting the copper key. The only problem is he is like really low level. Like he's only like 3rd level. And if the module is correct, he's going to end up having to face off against a Lich, which is not a fun thing to do for anyone that's ever done it in D&D. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. Because the Lich, he can kill you. He can just take your soul from you and kill you. You kind of typically want to try and bargain your way out of with a Lich if your DM is cool, if you can. But Liches are not to be messed with. So this has Parzival like really questioning things. He's like, am I going to be able to get through? We'll see. I'm just going to go, like, everything's lining up. I'm excited. He's too excited to be worried about anything. That's the thing about this, is like, he's just like, I don't care. I got to go. Like, this is my first breakthrough. Like, I got to follow it and see where it leads. So he gets to the tomb. He takes his shield off his back and uses it as a shovel. After a few minutes of digging, he's in the tunnels. Everything's lining up. He knows where all the traps are. He disarms them. He knows where all the monsters are. He avoids them. He knows where the loot is. He goes and picks it up. Picks it up. He gets enough gold, which after he picks the gold up that's in the tomb, it converts over to credits. So now he's got money. It converts over to credits that he can use in the Oasis. So now he has a little bit of money, much more than what he had. Like, it's 20,000 gold. So it's going to convert over to credits, whatever the Oasis, transfer is. And then he also, on top of that, gets 20,000 experience points, which pushes him up even further. So one, this is the highest level he's ever been. This is the most money he's ever had. And he's going after the thing that, like, he's wanted to go after for at least the past 5 years, the good majority of his adolescence. And he's just having the literal time of his life. Wade does not want to have to get into a physical confrontation inside of this tomb, because if he does, he dies, and then he has to start all over again from nothing. which he doesn't have a whole lot to begin with, and everything's going to respawn. So even if he does die, it's not the worst thing, right? So Wade gets inside a pillared throne room. He finds his way to a pillared throne room. But in this pillared throne room in the original module, there's something here now that shouldn't be there, which is the Lich. The Lich is sitting on the throne. The Lich isn't supposed to be there. The Lich is supposed to be down further inside the inside the tomb. He's supposed to be on like a lower level. He's not supposed to be here in the throne room sitting on the dais. But Wade does notice something. He looks exactly how he did on the cover of the original Tomb of Horrors module, which gives further credence that this is legit. Like, Wade's still like, even though like all this is unfolding before his eyes, Wade's still questioning, like making sure and double checking, is like, is this real? Is this really happening, or am I just dreaming? He's not saying that, but that's kind of how that's kind of the vibe that I get from him as he's going through this. What Wade does next is probably something that would make other people that were in his shoes under his same conditions kind of be like, that was rash. Because Wade is sure that this Lich, if it comes to blows, he's going to instantly die. Like, there is no question. Like, he'll have to start all over. But Wade draws his sword and he puts a foot on the first step of the dais. And the Lich of Sararak comes to life. He starts moving. You like, Klein writes that you can hear, his neck popping as he moves it from left to right. You can hear his skin crack like old leather as he moves. And Sararak asks Wade, "What do you seek?" And Wade just is like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say here. I guess I'm just going to say, I seek the copper key. And then realizes, wait a second, I'm speaking to a king. Goes down to one knee and says, "Your Majesty," to follow that. Sararak tells Wade to rise and says, "Of course you do. But how do I know that you're worthy?" And Wade tells him, "Allow me to prove it." And Sararak then tells Wade, "Okay, then you will prove it in a joust." And Wade's like, I've never heard of a Lich jousting before. Won't we need horses, Sararak? And Sararak says, "No, birds." The throne melts into a joust cabinet. A joust arcade cabinet, coin operated. Sararak snaps his fingers, essentially like pulls 2 coins out of thin air and lets Wade know, best 2 out of 3 games. And so Wade begins to play joust with the Sararak, which is one of the coolest images this book can bring to your mind. You have a Lich inside of a dungeon. Well, not a dungeon, a tomb. Tomb, dungeon, whatever. You have a Lich facing off against a guy in armor. And how are they doing it? They're playing joust on an arcade cabinet to decide life and death, and whether or not you're going to get the prize. It's one of the most surreal things in this book, and it's something that always brings a smile to my face. It's one of my favorite chapters. This is probably my favorite, if not one of, if not my most favorite chapter in the book, which is him facing off against the Sararak. Because it's just a cool image. Like he's playing a Lich on a video game. Like, it's hilarious to me. So Wade loses his first game, but Wade has been playing Joust against his best buddy H for a long time, and he got so good at it that he made H essentially rage quit. H used to have a Joust cabinet in his basement, but H removed it because Wade got too good at the game. So, and that's how they used to settle all their disputes. So Wade then says, like, well, he took the cabinet out, and we no longer, H swore off playing me in Joust ever again. So now we settle all of our disputes in Street Fighter 2 instead. So Wade is very good at Joust, at least in his circle of friends. But he loses round 1 to a Sararak. And a Sararak then produces 2 more quarters, and the round almost starts, but Wade does something different this time. He asks the Sararak if it's okay if I play on the left, because I'm used to playing on the left, which whenever he played H, he did always used to play on the left. And this is Wade's secret to beating him, essentially, is playing on the left. Wade Sararak has no problem. He's like, no, fine, all good. You take the left side, I'll take the right side. They get situated, and they begin playing again. Wade wins this one. However, it doesn't start out good. But after, Wade kind of just shakes off the gravity of the situation and just plays his game, he's fine. He comes out and he wins. He wins game 2. So it's 1-1. And then they play game 3. To which game 3 lasted longer than the first 2 combined. And eventually Wade started noticing some hiccups in how a Sararak was playing, and abused these in order to win the 3rd game. But it took a very long time to do so. And then Wade wins, but what happens next is it's kind of funny, because the first game that Wade won, Sararak said, "Good game." And Wade the Lich extends his clawed hand. Wade shakes it and he says, "Oh yeah, man, good game." The last game that Wade wins does not end that way. A Sararak lets out a bellowing roar of rage, slams his fist down on the arcade cabinet, and then essentially punches through the arcade cabinet, shattering it into millions of pixels, and then tells Wade good game and that he has won. But then a Sararak turns into Anorak. This is Halliday's avatar, his wizard D&D character. A Sararak turns into Anorak, and Anorak presents Parzival with the copper key. And with the copper key, imprinted on the key is another riddle. This riddle says, "What you seek lies hidden in the trash on the deepest level of Daggerath." Now, going into this, so this is broken up into 2 different things. The deepest level of Daggerath is referring to the Dungeons of Daggerath, which was a game that was released on the TRS-80. The hidden in the trash refers to the Trash 80, the TRS 80 color computer. Also, it's worth mentioning, and Wade doesn't say this, but it's actually like hidden in the trash is a couple of different, like I feel like it's double here, because the Dungeons of Daggerath is actually in a bin, or a trash bin, next to the TRS 80, which he talks about, because this was in Halliday's bedroom, because this is where you would find a Trash 80 in the Oasis now. Is there is a planet for Middleton, which is the Halliday's hometown, and they have recreated his home, his childhood home there, as well as his bedroom. And then that's where he has a TRS 80 in the Oasis, and that's also where he has a copy of Dungeons of Daggerath, but it's also in the trash. So it's kind of a double meaning, but they don't mention it in the book. I thought it was kind of funny. But at the end of the chapter, Wade is super anxious to get out and go to, the planet where Halliday's bedroom is, so he can get to the first gate and clear it, because he wants to move on. He wants to get to the next thing, but he can't. And it's not because he doesn't have the money, because he has money now. It's not because he can't, leave or do anything. It's because there's another avatar in the tomb. He sees a shadow on the side of the wall. He hears footsteps coming down, and there's another avatar there. So in chapter 9, Wade is in a state of shock. It opens up with this avatar coming in and asking the question, "Who the hell are you?" And Wade immediately recognizes who this is. It's Artemis. It's his crush, his internet crush that he has had. She has apparently found the Tomb of Horrors as well, and has been playing Anorak for at least the past 5 weeks in Joust, unsuccessfully. And Wade thinks long and hard about every decision he is about to make here. First, he lies to Artemis and tells her that, because she asks him, "Well, how'd you do?" And he says, "Joust's not really my game. I lost and barely survived." And then Artemis is like, "Oh yeah, Joust isn't my game either. Totally know what you mean. This, that, and the other." Wade's honestly crushing on her really hard right now too. Like, he's super nervous about literally everything he is saying and doing in this scene. It's honestly kind of it's a very funny scene in the book. It's an exchange between two people who you're not sure if you can be completely honest with one another because of the situation, because they are both Gunters. They are both competitors at this point, because they both found it out. They trash talk each other. They apologize to each other. They come to mutual respect with one another, and then get back to trash talking each other after Artemis finds out that Wade lied and that he actually has a copy of the Copper Key, after she blocks his way out by casting a 15-minute barrier spell to block him and have the trash respawn on Wade as he's trying to leave the tomb, which is just funny. It's a little petty, but it's really funny because Wade lied. But in all fairness, Wade didn't know that whether this was a PvP zone or not until they tried to cross swords, because Artemis wanted to be cheeky and be like, "Well, there's only one way to find out whether or not this is a PvP zone," and swings her sword at him, to which Wade goes to parry, and then it says PvP not permitted in here. So at least PvP's not permitted. but it doesn't mean she can't slow him down. Artemis does want to know, though, what Wade wants to do with the money if he wins. And they have a conversation about it. And Wade gives the typical, like, what would you do if you won the? This is very much a conversation of like, well, what would you do with the money if you won the lottery? And Wade says, I'd buy a mansion, fill it with cool shit, that sort of thing. He was like, oh, well, and then Artemis is like, well, once you do that, what are you going to do with the rest? Because, like, that's not going to eat up very much of it. And then Wade goes to tell her his big plan about building an intergalactic starship, filling it with all their friends in a standalone copy of the Oasis, with scientists and medical professionals and everything. And they're going to get the fuck out of Dodge and go find a new Earth-like planet that they can live on because the Earth is dying. Artemis doesn't like this answer because she just wants to solve all the problems on Earth. She doesn't want to leave it. And that's what she wants to do with the money. Is she wants to make sure everybody has enough to eat. She wants to make sure that the energy crisis gets solved so that all of humankind can benefit. Where Wade is more self-serving. Wade here is not the most likable person, but I would say it's the general, that's the general attitude of most people. What would you do if you won the money? Most people would use it for, themselves and on themselves. It's just, it's totally normal. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, that's how it is. However, it does paint Wade in a very self-centered, self-motivated way. Artemis, on the other hand, she is very philanthropic with her ideals of what she wants to do with the money and what she would do if she won the competition. So there is some contrasting viewpoints here. Even though Artemis has blocked Wade's pathway out of the dungeon, at the end of the chapter, he does leave Artemis with this. He gives her a tip, and he tells her that she should trade places with a Sararak because that's how he beat her, and that's how he beat him. So, what did everybody think about this week's reading? In my opinion, this was probably, like, so far, I know that some of you haven't read this book, but this is one of my all-time, like, those last 3 chapters of what we were reading this week are probably 3 of my most favorite chapters in the whole book. There's so many interesting things happening, and the very first time I read this book, like, I couldn't put it down because of those last 3 chapters that we just read. It's where things start to get going. This is a hunt. This is a chase. There were a lot of references in this week's stuff. There was Indiana Jones references. There was a reference to an old comedy movie that I really loved from the 80s, which was Real Genius, with Val Kilmer. If you guys have never seen it, highly recommend it. We actually might watch. That might be like, we have been typically watching 2 movies a night during our movie night, so maybe we'll do Real Genius after War Games this weekend. This week's reading was, in my opinion, we're going to be hard pressed to get a better 3 chapters than that. I think there are some other moments that are really good, but those 3 chapters combined for me, like especially the first read through, are so good. The Dungeons and Dragons stuff that is in this was really good too. I am a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan. I've probably been playing Dungeons and Dragons since I was like, at least as long as I've been playing Magic the Gathering. Both of those games I've probably been playing since I was like 11 years old. And I have fond memories of playing both, Dungeons and Dragons especially. So many good times with friends, sitting around a table, rolling dice, having similar imagery being able to come to mind from reading about someone going through a module like the Tomb of Horrors. It's very nostalgic for me. It's probably why I like that chapter so much. Well, guys, that is it for this week in session 2 of the Ready Player One book club. My name is CleverDingbat. I appreciate you all for being here and tuning in and watching this. We do these sessions Monday nights at 9 p.m. Our next one will be on October the 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern, where we will be going over chapters 10 through 14. Don't forget about the movie nights in Discord. This weekend we will be watching War Games, and we might do a double feature and do Real Genius as well after War Games if we have people show up. So 10 p.m. this Saturday for War Games, 9 p.m. on the 19th. That's when we will be doing session 3 of the book club and going over chapters 10 through 14. Also, everyone, please don't forget about the giveaway. The link to that will be in the description down below. If you also are interested, I put together a Spotify playlist of all of the songs mentioned in the book. The link to that will be in the description below as well. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you again in the next one. And remember, be excellent to each other. Peace.